Um, thank you, Jacob. If you haven't signed in yet, please sign in on our link tree. Yeah, some announcements before we have our guest speakers from Skechers go. Oh, yeah, so this is where we are. This Thursday we're having trivia night at Innovation Brewworks, and then on Friday there's no meeting. So do not come to the workshop on Friday because there is no workshop on Friday. But yeah, join us for trivia night. That's all the announcements I had. You have any?
No. Shout out to NCAE who just got back. Does anyone from NCAE want to talk? How was your experience?
Okay, so NCAE was like pretty fun. It was like a pretty good learning experience. I think everybody on the team did very good. We ended up placing second at nationals. So yeah, that was pretty good. We lost by 8 points, so it's like a little bittersweet, and we are like very salty. But yeah, overall, like learning experience, and anybody that wants to like get started in cybersecurity should definitely like look at that competition and kind of like check it out. I definitely learned a lot, and I'm pretty sure everybody else on the team also learned a lot. So yeah, definitely check out the cybersecurity boot camps that should post this summer. It'll get you very prepared.
And can they reach out to you if like they have questions about?
Yeah, so you can reach out to anyone on the NCAE team on Discord. If you look at our profiles, it'll say NCAE on it. I know everyone on the team is like pretty friendly for the most part. So yeah, just like reach out to any of us with any questions regarding competition or like getting prepared for tryouts or whatever. So
What was your favorite part about being in Florida?
favorite part about being in Florida? Wow. The free food. Everything's pretty much paid for by Cal Poly Swift. So that's like pretty cool. They have to spend a dime.
So the Florida aspect.
Hot pot was way better.
Whoa, they got
Hot
hot pot. That's
No,
crazy.
that's what I'm saying. I'm saying we're getting scammed, bro. Because like they went for all you can eat. I'm like, bro,
We got Korean barbecue and then hot pot like 2 days later.
we're getting scammed.
We're getting
Yo, that's crazy.
Okay, anyway, sorry.
Okay.
Dim the lights.
Okay, let's welcome our guest speaker. We have Josh here with us right now. Let me drag you over so they can see your face.
I'm just pinning.
Okay. Oh, that's Jacob.
But yeah, Skechers is a really cool company. They gave me my first job in security when I was a little freshman and with no experience, and they took a chance on me. And like the team is super, super cool, and I'd go back in a heartbeat after I've like finished everything that I want to accomplish. So I think it's really cool, and like hear out Josh and Jeremy. They have a lot of things to share about their time at Skechers. Josh actually just recently returned to Skechers, so that just goes to show how incredible the team is there. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy our guest speaker today.
Thank you. And appreciate the invite for today's event. I believe this is my second time at East West event, before at a Discord chat, just supporting, like any questions. But now this is my first time speaking in front of everyone. So again, thank you so much for the invite. But yes, we did start our, like really diving deep into cybersecurity at Skechers, which I really loved. And Jessica and I are both co-interns at Skechers before, so that was really fun experience for us. And yeah, I am really proud of all the achievements that Jessica had, outside of that. And yeah, just like getting there. But of course, it's very rude of me not to introduce myself. So I just want to, take a few moments to just, give you a little background of who I am, why am I here, and what am I going to share with all of you today. So my name is Joshua Santos, and people just call me Josh. Call me just Josh, if that's okay. And you can all, know that we started our careers at Skechers before, but I my experience right now is, like I was an advisor for multiple different companies, like a subject matter expert for anything compliance, you name it, like PCI, SOC 2, ISO 27001. I know those are big words at the moment, or like something, kind of familiar, but not really like in depth. But those are the things that you might encounter when you are in the profession. But for me, I do have two master's degrees, and I also have two bachelor's degrees, one of which is completely not related to cybersecurity at all, and that's a story later on. And I'm currently working on my PhD in cyber leadership at Capital Tech University. And the reason for my PhD in cyber leadership is because I noticed that although there's a lot of training that we have for cybersecurity professionals, there's still a gap that we need to address, like the catch-22 of getting a job in cybersecurity. So that is something that I'm really passionate about, which is why I'm also part of the NIST Cybersecurity Career Ambassador program. Well, it's not really a program by NIST, but it's fully supported by the organization. And I mentioned earlier that I did not prepare any slides at all, and I just want to keep this very casual conversation, kind of like a fireside chat. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask me during this time. And like compliance journey, there is really no one way of getting into the field. And like there's a lot of avenues that you can explore, such as auditing, and also you can do an internal GRC team, which I'm currently part of right now, and also consulting. So those are the things that you might consider in your career. But just want to ask Jacob if you want me to tackle anything specific for for today, that like a pressing question for everyone here.
Yeah, I can kick it off. So what made you interested in GRC, Josh? I know there's a lot of aspects of cybersecurity. What made you specifically want to get into that kind of field? And what do you feel like is the importance of it as well?
Yes, so that's a great question because I started the GRC route when I was working at a dental office before. So at a dental office, I used to be a dental assistant, and then I went to go to a front desk job where I got the handle of being a compliance officer. And that is where I found out like, hey, you know what? I think I'm really enjoying this. And, like my main responsibilities was, HIPAA compliance, and also PCI, SAQA, just very minor. And also we do have the OSHA, audits from time to time, but also, I mean, really, we just need to prepare for that if we ever get reported, but luckily we didn't. So those are the things that I really enjoyed, which is why I decided to pursue my second bachelor's degree, and that's focusing on cybersecurity. And that's kind of like connecting to what I mentioned earlier, that my first bachelor's degree was in nutrition and dietetics because my parents wanted me to become a doctor, and I just don't feel like I want to become a doctor. I know it's kind of like a stereotype thing for us, but they do want me to become a doctor. But like come to think of it, I'm also working on my doctoral degree, so I'm a doctor still. I'm going to become a doctor still, but not for people, only for computers.
No, yeah, that's awesome. And for me as well, I'm also very interested in GRC. And what would you say is the most frustrating thing about it? Because I know there's like a lot of stigma around auditing, and people don't really like that word. It's their trigger word. So what would you say is the most frustration or most difficult part of being in that kind of area?
Yeah. So the great dilemma in the field of GRC is that everyone wants to be compliant, but no one wants to put in the work to be compliant. Well, to that point too, being compliant alone is not enough in today's environment, right? There's a lot of very sophisticated attacks that's happening around us, and being compliant is just a, what do you call this? Very entry level is what I would say, and we should strive to be secured, but not to the point that we're going bankrupt. So it's just like a, like a balance between those two. And that is really one of the most frustrating part of GRC and also the most challenging because we need to balance what the business needs and also what we have capabilities on, like the resources we have, the funds, the people, the time, and all that good stuff.
Well, I think we have a question in the room. Person raising their hand, you wanna go up? You might have to ask it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, this would have been so much better with the catch box. But you could just yell your question. Or like come down here, yeah.
Wait,
Can you guys hear him?
No, it's like pretty quiet.
I can toss my phone around as a catch box.
Right. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, I was just curious about like, what is one thing you wish you could change in the current job markets? Like, I know you mentioned going into cyber leadership, but like, what is something that really like kind of frustrates you about sort of the, I guess, the stigma around cybersecurity right now and just how it is current?
Yeah, that is a really, really great question. So I know this is not new, and I know everyone is going to be really familiar with the situation, but if I could change one thing in the current cybersecurity environment and in the profession, that would be mainly related to how organizations perceive entry level candidates. They do they do expect a lot of experience for entry level candidates, and I believe that we should be providing avenues for actual entry level candidates to learn about the field because yes, we are aware that we do have some cybersecurity workforce gap that we need to address. We do not need to lower the quality of our, cybersecurity professionals, but we do need to at least make it more accessible for everyone.
Cool. So you mentioned you had two master's degrees. So, do you feel like going and getting those degrees helped you a lot, or do you feel like a lot of what you did in the workforce helped? And if you like went back to like your college days, how would you kind of change your pathway if you could?
Yeah, so I would say that the degrees that I had is, I would say, helpful in some way. But where I really learned a lot in the field is from my coworkers and peers. So it's really different when you are immersed in your workplace. And so internships are really helpful in this case, and also apprenticeships. I really do not know the difference, but that's a thing in the United States. And sorry about that because I just moved to the United States like 6 or 7 years ago. So those are kind of like foreign to me, the differences. But yeah, those are really what I think where the most value is in terms of learning in the field is where you get to there and not just, know the theoretical frameworks that relates to the textbooks, publications, and everything out there, but also applying those knowledge and actually formulating, creating, or auditing some compliance program.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. And kind of for the newer people, can you kind of break down what a GRC analyst does and like kind of your day to day?
Yeah, absolutely. So for a GRC analyst, we're talking about the internal role. There will be different aspects that you will need to focus on because GRC, each of those letters are really focusing on a lot of stuff. Like for example, governance. Governance alone, you are responsible for policies, and making sure they are enforced, making sure they are reviewed, and actually approved. Because a program without governance is chaotic, is what I would say. Risk. Risk is related to all risk management activities that you will have. For example, you have risk associated with vendors, risk associated with internal, vulnerabilities or your internal environment. So there's a lot going on in those, two letters alone. And then there comes compliance. So compliance is where we need to address some type of, standards, and we need to what do you call this, really be intentional in the programs or controls that we are putting in place to make sure that those compliance requirements are addressed by those controls. So really, GRC, all the letters there goes hand in hand with each other. So, just compliance alone without adequate risk management and governance, it will just fall apart. So you just have to make sure that you do those things. So day to day, of course, when you log in on the day, at least for me, you just want to make sure that it's really an ad hoc thing, for most organizations as a current, unless you have a very mature program, which is usually at a government setting. That's how they roll. But for usually, private institutions or private corporations, it is very ad hoc, and you go with the flow of the business, and you just make sure that you are providing some value that will return the investment in those programs to the company.
Hi, Josh. Can you guys hear me?
Hi, yes, I can hear you.
Okay, hi. Hi, Josh. Shrishti, I'm a grad student, doing my master's in information security as
Mhm.
well. And I'm an international student as well. I'm really interested in GRC. I do have a bit of experience as well. So my question to you was, what made you join Skechers in first place, and does it hold true to today? Like, is the same thing applicable today, or what was it that made you choose this position?
Yeah, so one of the things, it's really funny because when I was a medical professional, all of my shoes were Skechers. So I really do have a background about, the company before, because people would say that, that design wise is not, in for the younger folks, but I would totally disagree with that because they are launching like a really good product right now. So make sure to check those out. No, but it's a shameless plug for me. But like for me, when I was given the internship position, what really made me join the organization was the opportunity. They recognized that we are able to contribute meaningfully to the program, which is why I got hired full time after my internship. And then, of course, that's also the reason of my return to Skechers, because I realized that, hey, you know what? I really like the environment. I really like the culture. And it's not always about the titles and not always about the pay and not always about those superficial things. And as you go into the field of cybersecurity, you will understand the real value of having mental peace. So one of the quotes that a really wise man told me, before, cybersecurity is a marathon, not a sprint. So when you are getting into cybersecurity, make sure that you are intentional with the company that you are going for. Make sure that you support their values and it aligns with yours, just to make sure that when you are working day to day, it doesn't feel like a drag. So those are the things that I just want to share.
Well, thanks for answering it. I had a follow-up question. So in terms of tools, what kind of tools do you use at Skechers, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, I am not sure if I can share those, but just a generic
Yeah.
tools that I will be sharing with all of you. So one of the things that you would need to expect when you are working in the field of GRC is that you will be dealing a lot with spreadsheets. That is normal. Even with I work at a compliance automation software company, even with those type of companies, you will end up using spreadsheets. So that is one thing that I would say. It's good to know how to like make VLOOKUPs, very basic things. You do not need to be too crazy into like making those, but you know how to make VLOOKUPs, pivot table, and you can create reports, valuable reports and all those. That is okay. But in terms of other toolings you would expect, any project management tooling, such as, for example, Jira software or any tools like Monday, and all of this stuff. And also, of course, you need to communicate with your team. So maybe like Slack and all those good stuff.
Okay, understood. I had one more question. Promise this is the last one. I know that there are a few openings at Skechers. So what is this? What are the skills or what are the things that you look for in a candidate for those roles?
Yeah, so it really depends on the hiring manager, in terms of what they really look for in a candidate. But I would tell you, most of the time, work experience is good. But when you are given a chance for an interview, it's really mostly how you speak, how you are as a person, and basically more on soft skills is what they're looking for. So one of the things that I learned, uh, you know, during my time away at Skechers too, when I get to speak with a lot of CEOs, CFOs, CTOs, and all that good stuff, because my role as an advisor, I do need to speak with them, is that working in GRC, you need to make sure that you are not using technical jargons. So when you are going for those positions, there will be a balance when you are speaking. Know your stakeholder is what I want to emphasize.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you for answering.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So you mentioned that like Skechers kind of provided that um like or you mentioned one of the things that like the field in itself should be providing is that pathway into cybersecurity, right?
Yeah.
I was just wondering like how long or how much knowledge would you say you would kind of need to get into the field and kind of like start.
Uh, yeah, that is a long-standing debate in the field. Like, how much education do you need? A degree? Do you need a certification and all that good stuff, right? So that is really tough, to answer at the moment, just because, of course, there are really various hiring managers who look for different things. Some of which would really emphasize the need for education. Like even on the job posting, you will see like the bachelor's degree or all this good stuff, and also certifications like Security Plus. I think is one of the most common one that you will see there. But I would say, as it is still important for you to demonstrate your knowledge and also show that you are what you call that, being proactive in learning. So if you can get yourself at least Security Plus certification, it is not required, but it can show that you are working on something, working for on yourself. So those are the few things that can help you, advertise yourself out there, because in reality, there's a lot of candidates that's looking for the same position as you. Most of them will have these credentials, and you are not only battling, like those um, hiring managers' requirements, but you're also running against those other candidates that may have other qualifications or credentials as you. So if you do not need to pay for all those certifications too. There are a lot of free resources out there that I actually, that was part of my slides earlier. But if you can connect with me on LinkedIn, I can send those resources over to you. But shameless plug, I'll drop my LinkedIn below in the chat later on. But I'll be happy to share resources if you need training. Oh, thank you, Jacob.
Hello, hey Josh, I have a question.
Hi. Yes.
I know you mentioned that you had like a lot of, or you spent a lot of time at school with like, or you mentioned you had a degree in like something unrelated to cyber. My question is, do you had any like, do you learn anything with that degree that was transferable to your current job?
That is a good question because I would say yes and no. So one of the things I learned during, my pursuit of that degree, if I haven't mentioned it before, my initial degree was nutrition and dietetics. I know it's not very common. Like, I only took that just because it's a pre-medicine course or a pre-medicine degree in the Philippines, and I eventually not took the doctoral exam. But some of the things that I learned there is not really specific to the subject itself, but to my approach into the challenges thrown at me. Because in the Philippines, when we had classes, they have it like 7 a.m. and then, we end at 7 p.m. So it's kind of like being able to manage my time plus the commute, traffic, and all that good stuff. And it was not pleasant. So one of the things that I learned from taking that initial degree was resilience because I learned to adapt at like any situation possible. And that university where I was taking that degree is always getting flooded. So I think that's a skill I learned too, how to walk in flood. But outside of that, it's really more on the soft skills that I learned through that.
Cool, awesome. Probably one last question for me. What kind of certifications do you recommend for someone wanting to get into GRC?
Yes, that's actually a good question. So, depending on where you want to go, if you want to go for auditing, then it would make sense for you to go for, or at least look for anything audit specific or auditing specific. But if you are more an internal folk, um, it would be more on, I would say, depending on what the organization that you want to join, really needs. And some of which would be, again, basic things like Security Plus. Um, I know CISM is kind of a long way. It requires 5 years of experience, but it is a good one to have. And, something really attainable at the time would be something like SSCP, nothing too technical, because in the field of GRC, you just need to know enough on the technical side just to be able to make meaningful contributions, especially on the risk management aspect. So, you do not have to go really crazy on that one. And also, I would like to share with all of you if you want to like tackle everything that goes in GRC, the Simply Cyber course offered by Dr. Gerald Auger is a great resource to have. So, I'm really happy with that resource, and I think that Jacob, you also have that. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've gone through it.
Yeah, yeah. So, I can send the links to you if you connect with me on LinkedIn, and also, you can always search for it, simplycyber.io. So that's a good resource. And also OSED, you just have it has a steep entry price for it, but if you have the budget for it, it would be a good training. But again, there's a lot of free resources out there that we can use. And again, I'll send those whenever I can.
I think Jeremy actually just joined us. If Jeremy, you'd like to introduce yourself?
Hey guys, yep, I'm here. Give me 1 second. Gotta get my background situated. There we go. Yeah. You guys see me? Awesome. Well, thank you, Jessica. Thank you, team, for having us today. Josh and I are excited to be here and to have a little conversation with you guys today. I look at these as to be more conversational versus, I talk and you guys just sit there and just listen. But I'm pretty sure Josh kicked us off very well and kind of shared some of his insights and talked about his cyber journey. So thank you, Josh, for taking lead on that. I appreciate that. I'll hop right in, Jessica, if you'd like me to just kind of speak a little bit about who I am and kind of what we've done in the past and kind of the stuff that we're working on now. I can definitely take lead and do that right now if now's work is good. So
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that sounds perfect. Thank you.
cool. So I'm an old school guy, so apologies. I like to share slides, so give me 1 second. I just have one slide I want to share. What's going on? All right, sorry guys, a little delay with the tech here. Don't worry about the slide. I'll just shoot it raw. So Jeremy Yates, I've been with the company for 5 years at Skechers USA for 5 years. And my cyber journey has been over a decade long. I started my career at Ernst & Young in their advisory services practice. I did that for a few years, primarily focusing on external audit, that aspect of it. And I dabbled in some internal audit work as well, only for a microsecond there, but primarily focusing on IT general control testing, the day-to-day kind of, SOC readiness assessment reports, working with customers to kind of help bring them up to an acceptable level, and get them ready to be SOC certified. What was rich about that opportunity, although not ultra technical, is that, and I want everybody, and I know Jessica, you and the team, you guys do a really good job of understanding this, but really correlating everything you do on the technical side back to what it translates to and what it really means from a significance perspective to the business, right? Working in audit definitely gives you that exposure, gives you that visibility to understand, all right, at a high level, these are the key controls that we care about. These are material, could impact the business in a real legitimate way, if things were to kind of go off the grid. So I really valued that experience. I did that for about 3 years, a little over 3 years. And again, got some exposure across various industries, which is really good, right? There are a lot of regulatory bounds for different types of industries. So as an example, healthcare is a little more highly regulated than, let's say a retail player in the space. So it was really good, very rich experience for me, to be able to really learn at a high level how different, teams address different risks, different types of risk, what, impacts different organizations based on where they sit in the industry. And then I moved on to the Walt Disney Company. I spent about 3 years there, a little over 3 years, working in a similar capacity as to where I'm sitting today, but more on the front lines and helping build out their GRC program, primarily focusing on creating efficiencies in their PCI compliance space and their third-party risk management space. Again, a lot of valuable insights gained there, as Disney is a parent company to a bunch of subsidiaries. So the Lucasfilms, the Marvels, you name it, the parks, very different business model than, a straight content provider. So different risks associated with, each flavor of, subsidiary. So very invaluable experience there. And then I had a cup of coffee at Wells Fargo. I spent some time there as a PM. I wanted to try my hand in a different capacity, and help them out on the back end. They had a data breach in 2017, and I helped them out on the back end there for, almost a year, on cleaning up some stuff. Then shortly after that, made my way back to Disney, helped out with some of their privacy processes, helped flush that out a little bit more. So kind of really got to understand what they had going on in that space, things that were coming down the pipe. And of course, privacy is taking on a mind of its own currently, as we sit here today. And that brings me to where I am today. at Skechers. So like I said, I've been here for 5 years, and I was tasked to help flush out and baseline our GRC program, and we've been incrementally building the program ever since I've arrived. A typical day for me, it just depends now. We've experienced such tremendous growth over the last 5 years. The team has grown significantly, and when I mean team, I mean the global team. The brand has grown significantly, which ultimately opens us up as a more valid target for cyber criminals. So we're seeing a lot of added attempts and attacks against us as a shield. So a lot of fun for my counterparts in the SOC. So a lot of fun there on our side. But when you think about GRC, and Josh, you might have already kind of touched on this to my earlier point. The function really exists to truly help align IT with the business, right? Cyber in and of itself is fascinating, but in the industry, in the real world, if it doesn't help the organization reach their goals and reach them, in an efficient capacity and manner, then everything that we do on the cyber side kind of is, not as potent, right? Right. It's all about, brand impact, helping the organization evolve and continuing to protect the organization. So GRC really sits as the, interface between IT and the business in that capacity. And so for me, on any given day, I could be pulled in a variety of directions, right? Especially going and thinking about privacy and what's going on in the privacy landscape right now, where we have the CCPAs of the world and all this new state legislation that's coming down the pipe. And even when you look abroad, the things that we're impacted by as being a global brand. Things change, the environments change, how we conduct our business in these different areas of the world, they change, right? And it's all about making sure that from a security perspective, we account for all the risk associated for that net new activity. We translate that into means in which leadership can understand what the bottom line represents, and how it can be impacted if we're compromised or if something were to go wrong. And we help the various teams execute game plans against those risks, right? So truly understanding what the impact would be if we were to have a bad day, and being that vessel to communicate across all the relevant parties to make sure that we prioritize the things that need to be prioritized in order to protect the business, so we can keep the lights on, keep selling products, and continue to having good days. So a lot of interfacing with legal, with those changes that come into place or come down the pipe, and then also I could spend my time with the lead of internal audit, focusing on our controls testing for the year. So just making sure for things that could ultimately end up material for us, that our teams are prepared and ready, and that on a continuous cycle that we're doing the right things across the calendar year to satisfy those control requirements. Right now, of course, again, like I mentioned, us being a retailer, big e-com player as well. We have our PCI regulatory, compliance bounds that we're bound by. So we're actively in assessment mode right now for our domestic channel. And then later on in the year, we'll be focusing on other channels for achieving PCI compliance as well. And so the day could be, a little bit of everything, right? And to my earlier point, GRC kind of being the interface between IT and the business. If there's any net new project at any point or in any place in the business, you best believe that GRC is involved in some capacity. So at a high level, that's kind of how it looks. Another big project for us and things that are top of mind for me right now, as I look not only at our organization, but organizations abroad outside of retail, is how all shops in the GRC space are looking at human risk element. And I don't think a lot of attention and focus since I've been in the industry has been placed on this area, as I'm seeing it being of just annual kind of compliance checklist. Hey, your annual training. Here are all the policies you need to be made aware of. Here are all the resources that are available to you. Here are the things, and from a behavioral perspective, we need you to be made aware of. And we'll call it a day. But over time, you can kind of see how ineffective that is, right? If you take a test once a year, how likely are you able to retain and have recall, 6 months down the line and be able to perform that thing we asked you to at the top of the year? It's very low, especially when you think across the business, right? Not everybody is ultra technical. And not everybody has retention in that capacity, right? So what you run up against is the business wanting to do what they have to do in order to execute against their job responsibility in an as efficient way as possible. So in a lot of cases, they don't want to do the wrong things, but ultimately, if it creates efficiency for them, and the training isn't continuous throughout the year, you kind of run the risk of them doing that thing you don't want them to do. So a lot of emphasis is being focused, although, kind of an, out of box kind of opportunity that's I'm seeing grow in cyber is more investment is made on individuals to lead, security awareness programs specifically, right? It's always been a component of somebody's role, you know, since I've been around, since I've seen it. It's always been a small fraction, but now starting to shift to see more and more organizations invest in, all right, let's hire on resources to run a continuous program to make sure that our SOC isn't overwhelmed, our shop isn't overwhelmed, and they truly understand the things that we're asking them to do on a continuous mechanism. So that's one thing that's kind of top of mind for me right now. But I'll pause there because I don't know how much you've shared, Josh. But if there are any questions just in general about any part of my journey or whatever, I'm happy to take those right now.
So I think we're surrounded, our room is filled with a lot of people in different focuses in cybersecurity.
Okay.
Like when I worked with you, I was on IR.
Yep.
So my question is what are some ways that you think other teams can better help support the GRC effort? What are some things that you'd like to see other teams do more proactively? And just kind of to help out.
I think a lot can be done with just like to your point, Jessica, just communicating beforehand, right? If there are certain projects and initiatives that are coming into the fray that you as an IR or security engineer supporting, or if you're part of the cloud team, if you're supporting an effort, supporting our data lake engineering team or data analytics folks, more specifically, communicating that stuff in advance. So we're not ultra reactive. GRC isn't meant to be a reactive shop. We're meant to be ultra proactive and kind of getting ahead of the risk. So teams are doing that, but I think that's an easy end to kind of make sure that GRC is operating and humming in the fashion that it's intended to hum, and it makes for great days for the other practices as well. So a simple solution, but don't really see that everywhere. Sure.
Do we have any questions in the room? No. Another question that I had was sorry, let me think about this. How important do you view compliance in respect to the other pillars of cybersecurity? Is it something that companies should be prioritizing more, or I guess like, what are your views on that matter?
I think it all depends, and that's a good question. That's a solid question. I think it all depends on kind of again where the business sits and what the business prioritizes. And being in retail, like I mentioned earlier, we're not an ultra checklist shop, right? What our goal is ultimately is to focus more on the risk aspect of things, right? So if things from a compliance perspective translate to, all right, a risk being realized and the impact being significant, whereas a lot of stuff in compliance can be deemed as checklistish, right? Do you have X in place? Do you have Y in place? And typically, mature shops have those things, and we can demonstrate, operational effectiveness in those areas. But for me and for what I'm saying now, it's more of a shift left, right? And the focus should be primarily on identifying the risks associated with any onboarding or projects that you're onboarding. If there's any risk associated with offboarding any technology that you haven't accounted for, how those streamlines impact different aspects of security, right? Does that create any gaping holes for my colleagues, right? And identifying that and packaging that in a way to understand if there's any materiality or not. Compliance, it is. I won't diminish the importance, but it would be, a second, in my mind, especially given the current state. But that's a good question.
Do we have any more questions in the room? Is there anything you'd like to share or like any way that, people could reach out to you for perhaps like mentorship or opportunities at Skechers?
Yeah, absolutely. You guys can give me a shout. I'm on LinkedIn. It's Jeremy Yates. I'll just throw it in the chat. I don't have the hot link, but just find me. My face is there. Yeah, I'm always open and willing to to talk to students because I feel like at this point you guys have a great idea of what you're excited about, what you want to do, but I think there's a real opportunity to understand and have that translate to the actual business impact and significance of what it is you're doing. Like, the technology is fun. You need to, need to understand frameworks. You need to understand, different technical processes. But ultimately, to really round out your utility belt, you need to make sure you understand, the business impact around what it is you're doing. So, absolutely, just hit me up. I'm on LinkedIn. And give me a shout. Thank you, Josh.
We'll send this all in the Discord later too. And would you be comfortable sharing like if there's opportunities currently open for students?
There are some technical opportunities right now. None exist. Well, I think there may be one in our SOC that's available. Outside of that, there are a few engineering roles that sit just outside of our team. But I can provide more information on that as well. I can send that. Can I send that to you, Jessica? Or
Yeah, sure, of course.
Okay, I'll send that to you.
I guess like one of the biggest things I appreciated about my time at Skechers was like I was never treated like an intern per se. Like I was always given opportunities to do anything that's like within my capacity and learn. And I think that's like it's a really good opportunity for anyone looking for a place to start. And
Yep.
like
Yep, I'd agree. We definitely let you go, let the reins off, let you have at it. So, yeah, we appreciate it, Doc, having you, Jessica.
is there anyone who has questions? I think that's all. If there's anything that you'd like to share or Josh, any like final remarks before we close off the meeting?
I'll let Jeremy, take that one as he's the wise man I was referring to earlier, who
Nah.
mentioned that cybersecurity is a marathon, not a sprint. So, yeah. Jeremy, if you have any words of wisdom you want to impart.
No, I mean, to kind of echo some of what you talked about, Jessica. I mean, there's you guys probably have some specializations and some specific interests in the cyber realm, but my recommendation would be, as you kind of take your first step and enter the workforce, be as open as possible, and especially try to understand and soak up, how all the pieces fit together and what it really means to, support, an ISO shop. So it's very good to, have your specialization. It's very good to understand, at the root level what you're doing, but to have that kind of, married with the overall importance of what IT and ISO is doing is, it's invaluable. So just think about it in that capacity.
Yeah, and also in addition to that, since Jeremy mentioned specialization, I just want to emphasize the need for networking in this field because you will get to know a lot of people and you get to ask them like, hey, I realize that you're working at this. Do you mind sharing your experiences about this? What should I expect on this role? And that is when you are still exploring the specializations that you want to go to. And yeah, just networking, connect with people. That's gonna be my.
Yeah, Josh, I don't know if you sent over, a few of those professional orgs. But yeah,
Yes,
I would join some of those, and that's a great
yeah,
vehicle for doing that for sure. Creating those relationships.
absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll definitely send all your LinkedIn's into the Discord and encourage people to reach out for like any questions. But yeah, if that's all, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your support, your continued support. Skechers has been supporting Swift for a couple years now. And we've had a couple Swift alum work at Skechers over the years. So it's pretty cool to see that this partnership continues. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you guys. All right.